This is LKE with Disaster Peace Theater, and we are in Lexington, Kentucky with David McLean today. And we're going to talk to him about his career and all of his different endeavors. I looked on your...
And we'll try not to bore you completely.
You wear many hats.
I wear many hats and many skirts.
Well, we can talk about that later.
Oh, this is not that channel. Oh, sorry. Edit, cut.
You are a guitarist.
I am.
Music instructor.
I am.
Producer.
I am.
And music entrepreneur.
That probably sums it up.
So it's from what I can gather, it all kind of started like with Skinny Devil music, and you branched from there. That was like the
Sure.
heart. Am I guessing the heart of the company? And then
Yeah, in terms of a company, yeah, I think it was late 90s, 98, 99, somewhere around there. Maybe a little earlier than that. I was looking for a name because I looked up, and as a self-employed musician, I realized I'm doing all these different things underneath sort of an umbrella. And then Skinny Devil came up, which was actually a joke. It was I was in California, and one of my best friends in the world, Glenn Smith, was had been in a band with Glenn, and I was out in California for his wedding, and so I was in the hotel and grabbing a shower, and when I came out, like several people were there, and Glenn came in, and I'm standing there in a towel, and he said, "My God, you really are a skinny devil, right?" So, and it just was a joke. So I was thinking of these serious names, and then for some reason that came up, and it's
I knew there was a good story with it.
Yeah. So I just ran.
To be.
Yeah, so I just ran with that because I just thought it was funny. So, yeah.
You and I discussed this prior.
Sure.
But when you first got into music and because you play many instruments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when were you 5 years old? Were you a teenager?
When I started guitar, or when I started music as a general thing?
Yes.
Yes. I got my first guitar when I was 14, which is by some lights is fairly late, a late start. But I had started formal training with violin when I was in like elementary school or something.
Oh
wow. And it should be noted that I was in a household surrounded by music. My dad had passed on a music scholarship when he went into the military. He opted for that career track instead of exercising his music scholarship. He was a horn player, and my mom went to Tift College back when it was an all-girls college on a music scholarship also, or as a music. I don't think she was scholarship as a music major, and then she switched to English after that. Imagine growing up with your mother red inking your language. So at any rate, so which is to say, there was music playing in the household all the time, and there was a small electric piano that was in the house, and there were some small instruments in the house. So there was stuff around, and you could kind of explore. So I didn't have a lot of formal training outside of violin. What I had was a very rich environment to explore instruments and music of all styles. My dad would listen to a lot of classic country stuff when he was sort of lounging about, but when he was working, he had a lot of jazz going on. So my introduction to Coltrane and Miles Davis and people like that was actually through my dad. My mom played a lot of the pop music of the day, but she was also classically trained. So often, early in the mornings or whatnot, when I was growing up, she had, I'm listening to Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and sort of the giants of that world. So it was a very musical rich environment.
You were exposed to many genres.
I was exposed to just about everything, yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Or does it depend on your mood?
Sound. Yeah, no, I don't have a favorite. I really don't. I mean, I know a lot of it's mood dependent. You know, I'll be just I'll suddenly lean into Bach heavy and just like not listen to anything but Bach for 3 days in a row, and I'll come out of that and I'm suddenly listening to Ani DeFranco, and then I'm suddenly I'm thrown back and I'm listening to I love George Lynch, who had played with Dokken, and he put a record out where it's just instrumental versions of a bunch of his stuff that he had done, and I'll obsess on that for 2 days, and then it's like, oh, Michael Jackson, and
each one serves their purpose.
Yeah,
for your
and
moods.
yeah, and a lot of times it just one leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. But I guess as a player, probably it goes back more to old blues. I had an experience, I don't know who it was, I'm not even sure how old I was, and I don't even know where I was. My family is more like deep south, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. I was born in Texas. And all I remember is at a very young age being on a dock somewhere in the ocean, and a huge jar of pickles, these pickles that looked like they were giant. I mean, I'm sure it was a jar this big, but I was little. It was, a jar this big of pickles that are this big. And then some guy sitting on the end of the dock playing acoustic guitar. And he was playing blues, and it sounded magical and scary and compelling and terrifying and everything all at once. I just couldn't stop listening, and I couldn't stop watching him play. And it was just him sitting on the, stomping his foot on the wooden slats of the while he's playing acoustic guitar. That was it. And I'm sure at some point, I'm sure the memory has been altered. It's a resonator guitar, or he was wearing a hat, or some kind of blues stereotypes in there. All I know for sure is he was just stomping his foot and playing blues, and I had never experienced pure blues like that, acoustic blues, like throwback to Son House and Robert Johnson and Skip James and all those incredible guys. And that really impacted me heavily. And then the whole 70s sort of arena rock thing. Between those two things, I had several years there where everything sucked but that. I just suddenly didn't listen to anything except that for a few years. So it was either, Aerosmith and Ted Nugent, or it was Robert Johnson and, and what have you. So that's, I guess, more as a player, and a lot of that still comes back to haunt me, so to speak. I mean, that comes out in my playing a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
No, I don't mean haunt in a bad way. I don't mean haunt in a bad way at all, except for anyone who happens to be listening to me if they don't like that.
I noticed that you played, oh gosh, I had the name of it, bluegrass, too.
Mm-hmm.
And that you played with the McLean family band. Little side note, I interviewed Raymond back in the 80s.
Is that right?
Years ago, yeah.
Raymond's a great guy. I've never played with the band. I have played on stage with Ruth McLean, bass player.
Oh, okay.
And I know Raymond and Ruth. They're fabulous people. I know other more than just them, but they were my introduction to the band and whatnot. I had played with Ruth on stage several times, and then we booked for one of the Lexi Fest a few years ago. We booked them, and I had never actually seen the band perform. I had heard them, but I never.
McLean family?
Yeah,
they're still performing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they probably, I don't know how many shows they do a year. A lot. Yeah, they perform a lot. Well, I mean, not in our new COVID world, but
yeah.
But up until then, yeah. They came out and they were hands down the most amazing. And I've seen a lot of good bluegrass, so I'm not just like throwing that out there. They were hands down the best bluegrass band I have ever seen. If one wants to limit them to that, and that's one. They're not. They're really more than. I don't want to say just bluegrass, because bluegrass itself is much wider than most people think who are not into the style. But they are amazing. Every single member of that band is just a stunning musician, and they demonstrated it between their even just the visual part of the appeal, and the way they work together and their vocal harmonies and the way that the instrumental sections would feed in and out of each other, but fitting more as like a jigsaw kind of a thing, where they would make space and someone could fill that space, and as they're moving out, the next person's moving in. It was stunning. It was an absolutely stunning performance, and I would listen to them every night. I mean, or watch them every night to see that, and the visual impact. I mean, Ruth is playing away, and then everything breaks down, and she starts doing like a percussion line on the body of the stand-up, of her upright bass.
Yeah.
And then they come in, and she, and then someone else started coming in doing something, and then they're doing the chunks with and she's at it, and then suddenly she comes back in with a bass line. I know I'm getting overly excited here. But yeah, I could talk about them for hours. They were, if you've not seen the McLean Family Band, go see them. And if you don't like it, I will pay for the cost of whatever ticket you had to buy. That's an open invitation to anybody, because they were amazing. Yeah. And this state is full of amazing acts like that, I should say.
They are. I noticed that Skinny Devil has his own magazine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
could I get another one of these, please? Thank you.
Is this all in one or a separate all in one?
Yeah, we have Skinny Devil magazine, which I worked in publishing years and years ago. Thompson newspaper owned a small magazine called Provider Magazine that never quite got off the ground. But the publisher had asked me. She was like, "Oh, you're a musician and you play guitar. Why don't you interview Michael Hedges? Because a guitar player interviewing a guitar player is such a cool concept." And of course, that happens all the time, like in Guitar Player magazine and things of that nature. But outside of that world, it is kind of a cool concept. I mean, even Rolling Stone doesn't necessarily send they're sending journalists. So within that context, it is kind of a cool concept. And so I interviewed Michael Hedges back in I guess this was the early '90s. Before he of course died in a car accident a number of years later, but and so I had been sitting on the interview for years because the magazine had gone under, and so I just had it sitting around, and then thank you so much. Then I crossed paths with a guy named Joe McGuire, who had Tinfoil Music Magazine. And so I started doing a series of product reviews and album reviews, and then I got this whole series, the Guitar Gods interview series, with the first one being the Michael Hedges thing. Even though he was dead by the time we started this, I used that to kick it off and went from there. And then when Tinfoil, when he folded that one up, I just took years worth of those interviews and decided I would just do Skinny Devil magazine and put it in there with a lot of other things. So there's guitar lesson things. Most of those are like advanced type lessons, but so there's some free lesson stuff. There's product reviews, CD reviews.
where can they find that?
You just Google Skinny Devil magazine.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a blogspot site. It's Skinny Devil magazine or Skinny Devil music at blogspot.com.
You've interviewed lots.
Over 80 from my line is from unknown gurus to Grammy Award winners. Yeah. In fact, after Michael Hedges, right off the bat, one of the first guys, and he's been great. I've actually had the opportunity to interview him several times. With this guy named Steve Stevens, who played with Billy Idol and Michael Jackson on Dirty Diana, and was won a Grammy with for his work on Top Gun. That's him with Harold Faltermeyer, who did the soundtrack or did the theme song for Top Gun. And Juno Reactor, and he played in Vince Neil's band when Vince Neil parted company with Motley Crue, and he's just done a million things. A brilliant musician, and I've had the opportunity to interview him a couple times, but that led to another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Muriel Anderson, and Tommy Manuel, and Steve Lukather of Toto, who I think he's got the highest Grammy count, if I'm not, I think he's got 7 or 8 Grammys
Wow.
of all the guys I've interviewed. So, and he was fabulous. Luther is just, he's an amazing guy. But yeah, all styles of music. Jennifer Batten and
Do you have a favorite
a favorite
that you've interviewed, or somebody that you thought was going to be really cool and they weren't? Or...
All of them were cool.
Good.
I have
Good.
been very fortunate in my career, not just interviewing but working with people. I have very rarely come across people who are not cool, and a couple of times I've bumped into them, and usually looking, when you look back at it, it was a particular time in their life, and everybody has a bad day.
Oh, yeah.
You come across someone and you realize, well, you hear horror stories about person X, and you find out that, those horror stories came from a single event, and you find out they were in the middle of a divorce at the time or something like that,
Right.
and they were, not on their best day, and it may even be totally their fault, but we've all had those days where it's totally our fault,
Oh, yeah.
I'm in asshole mode just because,
Right.
we've all been there. But no, I've been terribly fortunate with all the interviews I've done and the people I've worked with, and some were really, I've had some particularly memorable moments, like with Greg Howe, who played with Justin Timberlake and NXS and Michael Jackson and whatnot, because a lot of those I would do through email just to make it simpler and easier, and then it wouldn't time sensitive in terms of, if they were in a different time zone because they're on tour or something of that nature.
Right.
We didn't run into those problems. But Greg Howe wanted to do it over the phone, and I caught him on one of his bad days. Actually, he was in the middle of shooting some video stuff, and he was frustrated, and there was a crew there, and his manager was kind of on him, and so he just, and then it was time to talk to me, and at first he was just kind of like, started like he was just getting through it, and then he was like, oh, he's a player, and next thing we know, we finished the interview, and I'm trying to rush through it because, I know he's busy, and he's got a lot of things to do, and he's going to go, he's got to go rehearse from the Grammy Awards,
Right.
in an hour, and next thing I know, he's just like, no, man, I want to talk. Do you have a few minutes? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just trying to get off because I know you're busy. Fuck it, man. And he's like, and then he just shot the shit for like 45 more minutes. And, those kind of things. He's not the only one, but he's a good example of where a lot of
good.
times musicians, when they're suddenly surrounded by other stressful external now I screw the word up completely. Anyway, external stressors are hanging in their world, and they just suddenly they go, man, I just want to hang out for a minute. Can we just hang out for a minute? Like, I just need to talk shop with a guy who knows where I'm sitting, and that's always
Right.
kind of cool too.
Right.
And seeing the wide array of talent in that too. From because you get a Greg Howe on this end, and a Preston Reed on that end, and a Baji Assange on the next, and just and a Marty Friedman, and they're just all amazing players. And what I've found is a lot of amazing players are often amazing human beings too. It's rare that I'll just talk to someone who's super talented here, but they're also an idiot. And you know what I mean? I couldn't even name an example. I've been very blessed that everyone who said yes has been really, really awesome, in addition to being very, 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 very talented. And the same thing performing. When I'm playing with people, whether it's studio stuff or live stuff, I've had the overwhelming majority has been positive and fabulous experiences.
Good. And that makes it all the better. Nuno Betancourt.
Nuno Betancourt is a badass, and he's an awesome guy too.
I knew he had to be.
Nuno Betancourt is a badass. Yeah, love that guy. He wouldn't know me from a hole in the wall, but that guy was so cool when I interviewed him.
Yeah.
Billy Sheehan
Yeah.
was the same way. Billy played with Mr. Big and David Lee Roth and Steve Vai's band for a while, and just all the other the Winery Dogs and all the other. That guy's a badass too.
Yeah.
He's just super, super cool.
He always seemed like he would be.
Yeah.
Well, we cannot end this interview without talking about the Lexington Music Awards.
Sure, yeah.
You are the founder and producer.
Yes.
So tell us about that and how you got this started, and the need you saw for it?
Well, to oversimplify, I mean, I've told you guys this story before, and about being at Morehead State University with Glenn Ginn and having conversations, and knowing he was in Seattle at the same time, guys like Kurt Cobain and Chris Cornell and whatnot. And so I sat here in Lexington, and I'm looking around going, there's guys like, Divine Crumb and Big Zoe over here in the hip hop community, and Raleigh Daly and Miles Oslin, and this huge list of people I could go into in the jazz community, and I can say that for any community. I mean, Avery Crabtree. Well, I shouldn't name names because there's just so many. I'll leave out. Yeah, I'm gonna leave everybody. There's no way to name them all. I mean, I would leave so many out, so I'll stop naming names. But the point is, there's so many people in it, and every single sort of style of music or subculture of a given style of music. And being in the scene, I moved back to Lexington in 2000, so being here at the time that we started at 15 years, we're 20 years in now or so, and I would have thought I knew the scene really, really well, and I was back here in the 80s and whatnot, so of course I know it well. I know it better than anybody, right? Yeah. No. I mean, I don't. There are so many. Someone might know like all the country guys and a bunch of the bluegrass guys and all the rock guys, but they don't necessarily know, all the jazz guys and all the. So there's just always going to be huge segments left out, and I knew I wouldn't know all of it. But I tell you what, the degree, even after just the first year, the degree to which I learned I did not know what I thought I knew was, I'm like, wow, I'm way stupider than I thought. It's just amazing the depth of talent in any one of these areas we can talk about. I mean, we could just start with, with the bluegrass thing, or with just the blues thing, or we could just look at the hip hop thing, or just the jazz thing, and we could go on for hours talking about any one of these areas, and it's absolutely amazing the depth of talent. Just even with the new players, you wouldn't even have to roll back 20 and 30 and 40 years. I mean, Ben Lacey's just that guy's so badass, Ben is just an amazing. He's not just an amazing player. I mean, he's an amazing musician, and he's an amazing creator. He's such a lateral thinker in terms of his approach, and his skill level matches that, and his creativity matches. It's just, and the thing that I said at the last award show, and I said on several of the radio interviews, Tyler Childers, God bless him, and I'm so happy for the success he's had, and he got nominated for a Grammy this year, or last year, I guess it is technically now. And somebody asked me about that, and I said I love Tyler, so this is in no way to beat up on Tyler at all. But Tyler is not an outlier. He's not. This community has guys like him, and I don't mean just in his style. I mean, there are high-level creatives like him in every style of music in this area. And at any moment, any of these guys could break out. If suddenly the thing that Ben Lacey does suddenly caught some kind of traction, 12 months from now, Ben would be nominated for a Grammy because he's just that good.
Yeah.
And I could go through again, the same thing. We could talk about. I think I'll try to stick with names I already mentioned, just so I don't make anybody else mad. But like Miles Oslin, for example. I mean, if Miles, who's a voting member of NARS, so he votes in the Grammys and whatnot. But if suddenly what he was doing caught traction in terms of sales or media, Miles Oslin is an easy and obvious, guy that people would go to. And if anybody were to go, well, you're saying that because he's from here and he's down the street or he's a friend of yours. I don't know, right? I don't know Miles personally. I've worked with Miles, but I don't know. He seems like a super cool guy, and I think the world of him. But I'm not saying that because I've worked with him and know him. I say that because he's stunningly talented, and anyone who sees any one of his bands perform, that will become immediately obvious that he's just that good. And if what he was doing was suddenly like the big thing on the block, in terms of national media, he'd be nominated for a Grammy before he could blink.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I mean when I'm talking about Tyler. So I'm saying I'm not beating up on Tyler. I'm saying Tyler is an example of how talented this area is. And I've lived in a lot of places. I mean, I've done, D.C. and was born in San Antonio and Atlanta and, St. Louis and Minneapolis. And I've visited a lot of places performing as well. And I didn't have time when I'm performing in Savannah, for example. I'm there for a couple of days, and so obviously I'm not going to get a grip on the whole music scene in Savannah.
Right.
So I don't know the depth and the breadth of the music scene in Savannah, for one example, or even Louisville for that matter, or someplace closer to home, or Buffalo, New York, or wherever. But what I can say is that the level of talent here seems to be more concentrated than many other places I've been. Absolutely. There are stunning musicians here, and many of whom we've had the opportunity to recognize, and many of whom are still under the radar to the point where they haven't been recognized yet because they're either doing other kinds of gigs or they're not out in the public as much. The public doesn't know about them. The guys in Superfecta, I'd mentioned Superfecta earlier, they do public gigs, but they're more of a private gig kind of band, so a lot of those guys haven't been recognized. Or guys like Luke Jackson, who's just this amazing player, but again, he's doing he's doing weddings and like private gigs and that type of stuff, and he's teaching, so he's not out in the community as much. And again, I shouldn't name names because now I've now left all the other people out. I'm not naming.
Everybody's gonna say you didn't call my name.
That's right, you forgot to put my name. I didn't forget. I just can't. I don't have time to list them all. But point being that there's just all these amazing players all over the place of all styles, and it's that's what we've tried to do with the awards and the spin-off of the awards, LexiFest, and then now with the awards trying to reach out to other festivals and venues to get paid gigs for these people who get nominated and who win, so that we can put them out on stages. So it's more than just an award.
So how are they nominated? Who nominates them?
Well, that's an excellent question. So it's a multi-tiered voting process. So around Labor Day, and today's Labor Day actually, as we should this,
happy
right?
Labor Day.
We usually have LexiFest on Labor Day weekend, and we're having it a little bit later this year, but we will launch the public ballot. And so the public comes in and they vote for anyone they want in any category they want.
Now, do you have suggestions there, or everybody can write in?
Wide open. Everybody, you have to write in. There are no
Okay.
suggestions at all.
Okay.
It's wide open. Anyone can say anyone they want in every category, and the category goes for not just style of music like you'd see with Grammys, but also best guitarist, best bassist, best percussionist, blah blah blah. And then we have industry like best music store, best venue, best whatever. And then we have our specials category that is like Lifetime Achievement Award and all that. So they can vote for anyone they want in any category they want. They don't have to vote in all categories if they don't feel like they know a particular category or have an opinion in one.
That's Phil Osborne's soundtrack.
Yeah. Phil's been nominated. I think he's been nominated almost every year, and he's won one or two of them. Yeah. And one of his bands, I think, or two of his bands, I think, have been nominated. So that's the public portion of the ballot. Now there are 4 nominees in every category, and so what we do is we take the top 2 of all the public votes, and that covers 2 in every category. And then we have professional panel that rotates every year. The members rotate every single year, so we don't get like the same guys and get in that kind of drag down thing like the the dark, seedy room behind closed doors where the guys in cigars are deciding who they want to have.
Great idea.
Which is the sort of the slam on the Grammys, because a lot of they're not very transparent about how they do it or who's doing it. So we rotate every year, and we'll have people who may be in 2 years in a row, or maybe in this year and a year or 2 off, and then back in again. But we try to rotate, and we rotate between different areas too. We'll have like performing musicians, we'll have instructors, we'll have managers of venues or music stores or recording studios. And so then we put together a small panel, anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen people, and then they vote. And they vote for anyone they want. They don't have to look at the other list or anything. They vote for anyone they want, and then we take the top 2 across that, and that's the other 2. And then we don't tell everybody who was publicly voted or who was, we just leave it across the board. So then we have 4 nominees in every category, and then once the nominees are announced, the 3rd tier, the way we choose in the finals, is only the people who are nominated. They vote on themselves for who they feel should be honored that year. And we're changing it so it's not a best, because that's really a poor way to put it, because a lot of times it's not so much like the best country band. It's a lot of times that people are voting based on, man, these guys have been out working it this year. They are like, we're honoring this band this year for all their efforts and all their creativity and all their everything that they've done. So yeah, it's a three tiered that way, and that way nobody is holding the keys to the kingdom, basically.
And see, I didn't realize till today that these nominees could be from other places in Kentucky and not just Lexington.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they we've had several acts from Louisville and the Louisville area, and down to as far down as like Somerset and London and Moorhead and Elizabethtown, and it's really, it's starting to cover the whole state, and we initially were thinking it was more central Kentucky and type of thing, but we didn't want to put a limit on it. We didn't want to top down put a limit. I want it to be a community driven thing. So if the community suddenly didn't support it, then we don't need to exist. So the idea is the community needs to make the decision, but we don't need to necessarily make the decision in a formal way and put limits on what other people do, because at any point then, well, I wasn't around when you did that vote, kind of a thing, you know what I mean? So instead we just go, well, it's every single person has an equal voice in what the geographical limit's going to be, as long as it's the state,
Right.
Although we did even have arguments if it's someone who's contributing significantly to the state but no longer lives here, or doesn't live here, never lived here even, and that was something of a contentious argument. But then it came up, what about the people who have lived here, born and raised, or lived here for a significant amount of time, started here and then went elsewhere, and went, because we have several people who started here. Taylor Hughes, who I think the first year she won lived here, but now lives in Nashville and has been nominated since then. She still comes back and plays all the time, and she's from here, so that comes up too.
So can anyone attend?
Anyone can attend, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Our home is at the Lyric Theater.
Okay.
We started that at the very beginning, thanks to Donald Mason, who opened the door to that happen.
And what are your plans for this year? Are you still kind of on hold with COVID-19, or?
It has put a damper in that we don't know. Obviously I don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know what the environment's gonna look like, so to speak. So there's a possibility that there will be a virtual show if they're not open. There's a possibility that it'll be reduced seating, where they'll only do 50% capacity or 30% capacity or something of that nature. It's hard it's hard to say. Hopefully, life will be back to some semblance of normalcy, and we will have 100% capability.
Yeah.
Is what we're hoping.
So you haven't set any dates yet until you get kind of a better feel?
Oh no, we have a date. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's I don't. It's the date right in between the playoffs and the Super Bowl. We've got the open one in the middle. I forgot what that is. 20. I want to say
I'm
the
not
29th,
sure.
but I'm not sure if that's the Sunday. It's the Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I think this year's the last Sunday of the month, if I'm not mistaken, of January.
Okay. And if someone's interested in being a sponsor, who'd they contact, or do you?
Contact me. Small bills.
Unmarked.
Unmarked. Yeah. We've got some great sponsors, but we do have a sponsorship package. We're always interested in partnering with other people, and we'd love to talk to anybody. Anybody who would like to get in and support. Not just the music, but everything that we're trying to tie into, because we have like the Lexington Fashion Collaborative comes out, and all of our presenter guides, the models, the girls in gowns, as it were. Those are all local area models wearing locally designed dresses and suits and whatever.
amazing.
We have guys and girls actually, and then by area designers. They're all designed in state, made in state, made by hand, and placed on area models, and all through the Lexington Fashion Collaborative. Ed Mackey's my saving grace as far as that goes. Ed's the man. And then we try to tie in with other areas of the arts community and the general community too, for that matter. That's the whole idea, and culture drives commerce. To be on the business side of it for a minute as opposed to the art side of it, it's a good business decision, because culture is what drives commerce, and the more that the business side of things can support not just the awards, but anything to do with culture, and there's plenty of choices other than just the music awards. That really drives the overall economy and economically speaking, but not just economically speaking. And there's social capital and cultural capital too, and arts capital as a general thing that certainly needs to be on the table of discussion as well. So yeah, we'd love to talk to anybody about all that. We love partnering with everybody.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
Come in with that. I want to thank you for spending your afternoon with us.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Here in Lexington. It's turned out to be a beautiful day.
It
So tell everybody how to get in touch with you for sponsorship and.
Well, you can visit the Lexington Music Awards at lexingtonmusicawards.org, and if you mess up and put lexingtonmusicawards.com, it'll also take you there. And then we've got lexingtonmusicawards.blogspot.com, which is the blog. I can be contacted through any of those. I can be contacted through my website, which is skinnydouble.net, and then our academy for teaching music, primarily guitar, but also bass and ukulele, and we've got keyboard and improvisation and songwriting and all sorts of workshops we do and whatnot. That's SDML, as in Skinny Double Music Lab, SDMLguitar.com. So I can be reached through any of those, my YouTube channel, and on and on and on. I'm fairly easy to get in touch with, or you can call Hearst Music or Willis Music, where I teach. I teach guitar out of both of those locations. Well, not currently because of but any of them can get in touch with me. So if you happen to be driving by one, just pull in and go, how do I reach that guy from the awards? And they'll put you in touch with me.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you at the Lexington Music Awards.
Cheers.